Hi there, Hiten this side. If you end up on this video, either you don't know how to approach the pattern problems, or you just want to revise the topics, or you just want to practice the patterns. I've got hands-on on lots of the pattern. It's like 8 to 10 patterns, which are the patterns that are asked on most of the places. Generally, these type of pattern questions are not asked in the interview. The sole purpose of these type of question is to develop the problem solving skills, because these question helps very much in thinking about logics and finding relationships between the different patterns and all. And there is one thing you need to keep in mind. So these patterns are interrelated to each other. If you just do some minor changes in the approach for one pattern, that will result in the approach of the second pattern. Okay, so uh, okay so while solving these type of questions, the first step is finding the relation between the spaces, finding relations between number of spaces and how these spaces are being printed with the row. So if you see closely enough to a pattern, so a pattern is comprises of two components. The first component is the spaces, the number of spaces that how many spaces are being printed, and the second component is the elements that are being printed other than the spaces. Okay, so that element could be star, could be any number, could be any alphabet, could be anything apart from space. So uh, if you just change the location of these two, okay, so that would change the whole pattern. Okay, so let us just understand by taking in let us just understand this by taking an example. Let's say I have to print a pattern like this. So there is one dot, then there is other two dots in the second row, then there is three dot in the second row, and there is the four dot in the second row. Okay, so in this particular example, we won't have to consider the spaces because we are just printing the elements. Okay, so but if I just swap the spaces with the dots, okay, so that would be like I'll place a dot on the space. So I'll place one dot here, and I'll place one dot here also, and I'll place one dot here also. Okay, so that pattern would look like this. So there is space, then three dots, then there is two spaces, then two dots, then there is three spaces, one dot, then there are four spaces with no dots. Okay, so we just swaps the dot with spaces, you know, and by swapping these dots and spaces, uh, we just got a whole new pattern which look like this. Okay, so um, to print this kind of pattern, okay, so first we need to find relation with the number of spaces with the row. Okay, so let's if I just number these rows, so this is the first row, this is the second row, this is the third row, and this is the fourth row. So in first row we have one space, okay, and one space followed by three dots, and in second row we have two space followed by two dots, and in the third row we have three space followed by one dot, and in the fourth row we have four spaces followed by zero dots. Okay, so while approaching this kind of pattern, okay, so first we need to find the relation with the spaces and row. Okay, and after finding the relation between spaces and rows, then we need to find a way, or I would say relation between the element that is being printed um, on the row, है ना, and the row itself. Okay, so let us just take this example only. Okay, so let me just erase these red dots. So that is okay. So if you see closely enough to this pattern, है ना, so this pattern has one dot on first row, second dot on second row, third dot in third row, and four dots on fourth row. Okay, so can I say that the ith row contains I dots, है ना, can I can say that, है ना, and I can just simply use this statement in my code to print out this kind of pattern for any value of n, है ना, ranges between 1 and any positive number. Okay, so so these are the like I would say two steps that you keep in mind while solving or while approaching a pattern problem. Okay, so first you need to find the relation between the spaces and the row, and then you need to find the relation between the elements that are being printed on the console apart from spaces with the row. And okay, so there would be a third step also. Okay, so if I just replace these dots with the numbers, है ना, so if I just replace like if I say that first row would have 1, second row would have 1 2, third row would have 1 2 3, and fourth row would have 1 2 3 4, है ना. So you need to, okay, so first you have calculated the spaces. So since this pattern has no real use of spaces, okay, so we'll directly jump on finding the relations between the, you know, the number of elements and the rows. Okay, so we know that first row contain one element, second row contain two element, third row contain three element, and fourth row contain four element. Okay, so we get this relation. So now what we need to do, we need to find relation of how these numbers are being printed on the given row, है ना. So first row has 1, second row has 1 2, third row has 1 2 3, है ना. So we need to find a way to print this kind of sequence on the current row, or I would say on the ith row, है ना. So if I just think about it, okay, so I'll end up on a, you know, on a very vague kind of approach that just I would simply uh, print the numbers. Okay, I will just simply print the ith number for the ith row starting from 1, है ना, and starting from 1, I'll just increment that one and print that number, like for I equals to 3. So for, let's say I am on a third row. Okay, so I'll just print 1, then I'll just print 2, then I'll just print 3, ठीक है, until the last number goes to the row number. Okay, so it's just a kind of very vague approach on printing the numbers on the row, but it still works. Okay, so we need to think about this also. Okay, so let us just jump to the level 1 patterns. So this is the level 1 pattern. So okay, so this is a very straightforward pattern. Okay, so we have n equals to 5, and we need to print this kind of pattern for n equals to 5. Okay, so I'll be following the steps that I mentioned earlier. So okay, so first we need to calculate the, you know, relation between the spaces and the row, and since these pattern doesn't really have any spaces, so I'll just skip that step. Second step says that we need to find the relation between the number of elements and the row, and the, you know, on the ith row, or I would say the current row. Okay, so so this row has the, you know, same number of element as the n, है ना. So for this particular example we have n equals to 5. So the first row has 5 elements. So the second row which has have 5 elements, the third row have 5 elements, the fourth row has five also have 5 elements, and the fifth row, sorry, um, fifth row have also 5 elements. Okay, and okay, so we have 5 rows, and in each row we have 5 numbers. Okay, starting from 1 until the end. Okay, so can I say that the ith row would contain the n elements? Okay, so this is the relation between the number of elements and the row. Okay, so I know that the if I am on any row, let's say I am on ith row, so that ith row would contain n elements. Okay, so we got on a point, uh, we got on a conclusion that a given row would contain the n elements, है ना? अब we need to find a way, like how to print this sequence, how to print this 1 2 3 4 5, this sequence on the screen. Okay, so if we see closely enough, we'll figure out that the first number of sequence is always 1, है ना? And the last number of sequence is always the value of n, है ना? So if I just take n equals to 3, so we would be having the 3 rows, है ना? So that would be one first row, second row, and third row. Okay, so we will be having 3 rows, है ना? And in each row we'll be having 3 elements. Okay, and the sequence of 3 elements, है ना? And the first element of that sequence being 1, followed by 2, and then 3. Okay, and then in this second row we'll have 1 2 3, and in third row as well we'll be having 1 2 3. Okay, so by just analyzing this pattern and this pattern also, okay, we'll end up on a result that the last element of the sequence would be the value of n, है ना? So we'll just simply run a for loop from 1 until n, ठीक है, including both of the numbers, है ना? And we can just print the we can just print the number. Okay, so this is like a kind of very vague approach, or I would say. Okay, so actually you need to take care a lot. Okay, so you need to concentrate a lot on this particular example only, because this would create a base for solving the pattern problems. Okay, so let's just directly jump to the C++ code, and let me show you how to code for this problem. Okay, okay, so we are just printing pattern 1, so I'll code in the pattern 1 function. Okay, so we are just taking the n, which is the number of rows for the pattern, and passing into the function called pattern 1. Okay, up now what we have to do, we know that we have uh, we we would be having the n rows in a pattern. So let me just run a for loop. Okay, so for int I equals to 1, I less than equals to n, and I plus plus. Okay, so what this for loop does, that it it give me the ith row. Okay, so first I'll be getting the first row, then I'll be getting the second row, and I'll be getting the third row, and so on. Okay, until the nth row. And as discussed earlier, okay, we found out that the ith row would be having the n elements, है ना? And we also discussed that those n elements are the sequence, are the consecutive sequence. Okay, starting from 1 until the n, है ना? So we just have to print the 1 2 3 4. Okay, we just have to print the consecutive number starting from 1 until n. Okay, and for this we can simply make use of for loop, है ना? So I'll just write for int j equals 1, because our sequence is starting from 1. Okay, so if you see closely enough in the pattern, the sequence sorry, the first number of the sequence is always being 1, and the last number of the sequence is always being n, है ना? So I'll be starting j from 1 until j goes to n and j plus plus because the sequence is consecutive. अब what we need to do, we just have to simply print the j, ठीक है, and after printing the whole sequence, we want that will go on the second line. Okay, so for that I'll be using endl. So okay, so it's a keyword that is used to go on a new line. You can also use the escape sequence. So let me just use escape sequence instead of endl. So I'm just using the escape sequence. So what it does, it just go to the second line. Okay, so let me just run it quickly. Okay, so let me just input the 5 as the number of rows of the pattern. Okay, so by giving the 5 as the number of rows for the pattern, I am getting the same output, the same pattern as we discussed earlier. Okay, so if I just take 10 as the number of rows of the pattern, so I would be getting the pattern for that also. Okay, so hope you got this logic, है ना? So let us just discuss the another variation of this kind of pattern. Okay, so this is the another variation. So this is pretty much same as that of this pattern. We just what we did, okay, what we did, let me, okay, so what we did, we just removed the numbers, like we just removed these kind of numbers, like if you compare it with this, like we removed 2 3 4 5 from the first row, we removed 3 4 5 from the second row, then 4 5 from the fifth third row, and 5 from the fourth row, and the last row has 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, so now we need to print this kind of pattern on the console. So again, वही same चीज़, first we need to calculate or we need to find the relationship between the spaces and the row on the between the spaces and the particular row, and then we need to find the relation between the number of element and the row. Okay, so since this pattern doesn't have any spaces as that of the previous one, so I'll be just skipping the first part and directly jumping to the second part. So now what we need to do, we need to find the relationship between the number of element and the row. Okay, so if you see closely enough that the if you see closely enough to the pattern, first row has one element, second row has two element, third row has three element, fourth row has four element, and fifth row has five elements. Okay, so by writing this or by analyzing this only, okay, can I say that the ith row has I number of element, है ना? Because if I just put I equals to 2, ठीक है, I equals to 2 means I am on the second row. Okay, and second row has two element, which is true, है ना? And if I put I equals to 5, that means I am on the fifth row, and the fifth row has five elements, which is also right. Okay, so this is the relationship between the number of element and the row number. Okay, now we have found the relationship between the number of element and the row number. Now what we need to do is we have to find the relationship between the uh, not actually relationship, we have to find a way to print this sequence on the console. Okay, so we just discuss the relationship between the row and the number of elements. Okay, and we also discussed in the previous question that this particular sequence is called a consecutive sequence. Okay, So what we can do is we can just print the sequence starting from 1 until I. Okay, and okay, so this is only we need to do. We just have to uh, print the numbers from 1 to I. Okay, and how I end up on this particular uh, solution is by analyzing the pattern. Okay, so while solving the pattern problems, you need to analyze the pattern first and then start thinking about the approach and writing about the code. Okay, so if you see closely, okay, so the ith row, let's not just say the ith row, let us just take an example of 3, okay, when we are on the row 3. So on row 3 we know that we would be having 3 elements according to this relation, है ना? Now I need to print 1 to 3, okay, and 1 to 3 is also consecutive sequence, and 1 being the first element of the sequence and 3 being the last element of the sequence, and 3 is nothing but the रो, ठीक है, बट दी ith रो, है ना? So we just need to print a sequence starting from 1 until I, ठीक है, and both inclusive also, ठीक है, both inclusive. So if we just test this relation, or test and test this relation with any of the sequence, let's just go to the fifth row, ठीक है, and we know that fifth row will be having the 5 elements, and those 5 elements would be 1, ठीक है, I'll be following this one. So those 5 elements would be 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. Okay, so these two are equal, है ना? So this equation or this relation is also true for this one only. Okay, so if you go on any row, and if you try this relation with any value of I, and I being a you know a real value, I being a positive number, okay, and I being a row that exists on a matrix, not really matrix, exist in the pattern, ठीक है, so this relation always found to be true for this pattern only, ठीक है. So hope you got it what I'm trying to say. So let me just jump to the code. Okay, so the code would be simple, ठीक है, as that of the pattern one, but the change would be in the one place only. So let me just really copy paste the code. So okay, so the change would be instead of n, okay, so this for loop is responsible for printing the sequence, okay, and this outer for loop is responsible for giving me the ith row, है ना? And we know that for a particular ith row we need to print the number from 1 until I, है ना? In the previous we were printing the number from 1 to n. In this one we need to print the number from 1 to I, so I'll be just replacing n with I, and this is the code for the second pattern. Okay, so let me just run it a quick. Okay, so code is being built, e dot out. Okay, so let me just take a value of 5 for the number of rows of the pattern. Okay, so this is the pattern, this is the second pattern, so this is the first pattern, this is the second pattern, and if you compare these patterns, okay, so the first row of the first pattern has only 5 elements, 1 2 3 4 5, but in second pattern we have only one, and in the second row we have 1 2 3 4 5 in the first pattern, and we have 1 2 in the second pattern, and so on. Okay, so hope you got the level 1 of the pattern, and uh, you can now solve very basic problems with this type of approach. Okay, so let us just jump to the level 2. Okay, so level 2 is a bit harder than the level 1, but it will taught you a lot. Okay, so this is the level 2. Okay, so in level 1 we doesn't have really much use of spaces, but in level 2 we have to make use of the spaces. Okay, so if you focus on this pattern, okay, so if you focus on this pattern, so you will realize that the first row has four spaces, like one, two, three, four spaces, followed by a element. Okay, so the first row have four spaces and one element. Okay, second row has three spaces, one, two, three spaces and two elements, and the third row has two spaces and three elements, and the fourth row has one space, है ना. Fourth row has one space, sorry, so this is the one space and four elements, and the last row has zero spaces and five elements. Okay, so now let us just follow those those three steps while approaching this problem. So the first step was calculating the relation between the number of spaces and the rows. Okay, so this is the first row, है ना. This is the second row, this is the third row, this is the fourth row, and this is the fifth row. Okay, so before discussing about the relation, let me be clear that we are given the n being the number of rows of the pattern. Okay, so let me just write it. N equals to number of rows. Okay, so n हमारे पास number of rows है. So by writing this only, okay, so can I say that the first row would contain n minus 1 space, the second row would contain n minus 2 space, and then the third row would contain n minus 3, fourth row would contain n minus 4, and fifth row would contain n minus 5 spaces, है ना. I can say that. So by just writing these relations, by just writing, not relation, by just writing, these number of spaces for the rows, I can end up on a relation which says that the ith row would have n minus I spaces. All right, है ना. So the ith row would have n minus 1 spaces. Okay, so let us just check this also. Let us just take the fourth row. So this row, is the fourth row, and we have the 5 as a value of n, and we'll put 4 in the value of I. So that would be, if we put 5 in the place of n and 4 in the place of I, so that would be 5 minus 4, which is 1, and we know that the fourth row has one space, you know. And let us just try with the fifth row as well. So the value of n is 5 and we are on the fifth row, so the I would be 5, so that would be 0. So the fifth row would have 0 spaces, है ना. Okay, so now we have found the relationship between the number of spaces and the rows. Now what we have to do, we have to find the relationship between the number of element and the row, है ना. So and the row. Okay, so if you see, if you see closely enough to the pattern, so this is just following the same sequence as that of the previous question, है ना. So in previous question what we were doing, we are just printing the numbers from 1 until I, है ना. So we'll be doing same also, but instead we have to print these numbers after printing the spaces, you know, because while analyzing this pattern we found out that spaces are being printed first, then the element. Okay, so we have to print the spaces first, followed by the sequence. Okay, so sequence is again same as that of the previous, that is the ith row would be having what? 1 to I numbers, you know. And if we just merge these two, okay, so we can say that first we have to print the n minus 1 spaces followed by 1 to I numbers, you know. So we can see that. So I hope you got the logic. So let us just jump to the code. Okay, so this is the level 2. Okay, so I'll be coding for the pattern 1 in the function pattern 1, and the 60% or 70% the part of this part would be same as that of the code of the previous pattern, which was this one. We just have to print spaces before the numbers. Okay, so since we have to just print the spaces before the numbers, so what I'll be doing, I'll be just printing the spaces before the numbers. So for that I'll be just adding another for loop which would be responsible for printing the spaces, and then would print the sequence. So for that I know that we have to print how much spaces. We have to print the we just discussed that we need to print the n minus 1 spaces for the ith row. Okay, so I'll be starting for loop. Okay, so let us take a variable k. Okay, starting from 1 and k less than equals to n minus I and k plus plus, and I'll be just printing the spaces. So that would be c out space. Okay, so this is the only code. Okay, so again I said earlier that the each pattern is variation of the another pattern. Okay, so we just started with the pattern 1. We just started with this pattern only, and then uh, do some minor changes, and we got this pattern. And by taking this code, we just copy paste it into the pattern 1. Okay, and we are just changing this code only. Okay, we are just printing the spaces before the numbers, and by doing the same we would be having the whole new pattern. Okay, so let me just run it quickly. So this is the level 1, level 2. This is not GCC, it's GPP, G++, level 2 to CPP, and this would be, let me just clear the console first, and then a dot out. Okay, so now what we have to do, we just have to input the value of n. So let us just take 5 only. So let's just input 5. Okay, so it's just minor bug. Okay, so actually this code was for the pattern 1 of the level 1. We need this code, but since I had this code on my clipboard, so I just copy pasted it. So Queenie, so let me just clear a console and then build it and run it again and inputting the value of 5. So we'll be getting this code. Yeah, and again we just made simple changes to the code of the pattern 2 level 1, and we got this pattern. Okay, so let us just discuss the another pattern, which is this. Okay, so uh, this pattern, this pattern, and this pattern, this pattern, okay, these are too much same. Like these are around 90% same. The difference that made the difference between these two pattern is that the this pattern has no spaces between the sequence, between the elements of the sequence, but this pattern has space between the sequence. Okay, so it's like this, like the first row would be having 1, then the second row would be having 1 2. So this is the following the same sequence as that of the pattern 1. And if we just add space, if we just add space between 1 and 2, so that would be a space, then 2. Okay. So then again we'll be having the 1 2 3 in the third row. So it's like this: 1 2 3 in the third row. Okay, so the same sequence as that of the pattern 1. So if we just add a sequence, sorry, if we just add a space between the numbers, so that would look like this. So we'll be having space, then 2, then space, then 3, and so on. Okay, so we can conclude that by just adding an extra space to the uh, number of the sequence, we can achieve this pattern. Okay, so let me just do it real quick. So let me just copy paste this. So this is one, control C and control V, and we just have to print an extra space with the number, so that would be here only. So this is the extra space, and by doing this we'll be getting this pattern only. So let me just again build the code real quick. So this is one, and run it, and let me just provide 6 for now. Okay, so if you see it, so this is the previous code. So this is the previous pattern, which is actually without any space between the number of the sequence, and this pattern is with the spaces with the number of the sequence. Okay, so by adding just a space inside the for loop, okay, so we'll be getting again a whole new pattern. Okay, so again I'll just again I'll be repeating that these patterns are just variations of each other. Okay, if you know how to solve one or two such problems, how to approach one or two such pattern problems, you'll be good to go. You just have to do some minor changes to your code in order to achieve the required pattern. Okay, so let us just discuss the next pattern, which is this one. Okay, so the first step was finding the relation between the number of spaces and the row. Okay, so we did it earlier, so which turned out to be ith row would be having what, n minus I spaces, है ना? And we did it in the while solving the pattern 1 of level 2. Ab what we need to do, we need to find the number of elements on the row. Okay, so we again did that also, and we concluded that the ith row would be having I numbers. Okay, so up now what we need to do is we need to just find a way to print this number on the row. Okay, so the one thing which I got in my mind, that uh, how we are printing the number of spaces. Okay, so if we see to the code, okay, so if you see the code of the pattern 1, okay, so what we are doing, that we are just printing the n minus I spaces, right? So let me just take an arbitrary value of I. So let us just assume that we are on the third row. Okay, so on the third row we are printing two spaces, है ना? So uh, so we are printing two spaces, है ना? So if we see on a for loop, so the for loop would be having one, ठीक है, and that one would print the that one would print one space, है ना? And again n being 5 and 5 and I being 3, ठीक है, so that would be 2. And okay, so k get incremented, which is 2, and check that whether 2 is greater than 2 is less than equal to 2, which is true. So it will print again a space, है ना? So it will print a space which is 2. Okay, अब what we need to do, what we can do is key. Okay, so we have just printed spaces for the number 1 and 2, but now what we need to do, we just have to print the 3 4 5 on the console. So that would be 3 4 5 on the console. Okay, and if we just take an example of this row also, which is the fourth row, okay, so we are just printing the n minus 4, which is 5 minus 4 1. Okay, we are just printing one space, ठीक है, एंड फॉलोड बाय नंबर्स 2 3 4 5, ठीक है, विच इज नथिंग बट दी numbers, ठीक है, विच इज नथिंग बट द numbers from the numbers from this set only. So that would be 2 3 4 5. Okay, so uh okay, so what we can do is we can just check. Okay, we can just first we need to get the row numbers, okay, which is something we really need. Okay, now what we can do, we can just iterate through each okay, so what we can do that we can just iterate through each. Okay, so क्या था इसको, 42. ओके, सो 42 कट मार दूंगा, सो लेट मी जस्ट रन इट, ठीक है, सो 42 कट मार दूंगा मैं. Okay, so let us just discuss about the second pattern of the level 2, not really second, the third pattern of the level 2, ठीक है, which look like this, and it might look like that it is same as that of pattern 1 that we discussed earlier, so which is indeed true. It is same as that of pattern, but the difference is that the in each row we are just printing the different numbers. Okay, so in the first row, in the first row, in the pattern 1, in the first row pattern 1, we were just printing 1, and in the second row we were printing 1 2, and in the third row we were printing 1 2 3, and so on. Okay, but in this pattern what we need to do, we need to print the 5 in the in the first row. So we need to print the 5 in the first row, and 4 5 in the second, then the 3 4 5 in the third, and 2 3 5 2 3 4 5 in the fourth, and so on. Okay, so let us just get the relation between the spaces, number of spaces, and number of element with the row. Okay, so since this pattern is same as that of the previous pattern, the pattern 1, so the number of spaces and the relation between the number of spaces and the row would be same. So that would be uh, for ith row we would be having n minus 1 n minus I spaces. Okay, so that is the relation between the spaces and the row. The second relation was the number of element with the row. So we know that the ith row would be having I numbers. Okay, so this is true. Up, what we need to do is find a way to print this sequence on the console. Okay, so if you see closely enough, okay, you will find the first row has uh, n minus I plus 1, which is 5 minus 1 plus 1 number, okay, which is 5. The second row has a sequence which is starting from a number which is 5 minus I being 2 plus 1, goes where until 5. ठीक है, so 5 minus 2 is what, 3, 3 plus 1 is 4, what, 4 है ना. So we are having a sequence starting from 4 to 5 है ना. And in the third row as well we are having what, we are having a sequence starting from 5 minus 3 plus 1 until 5 है ना. So 5 minus 3 is 2, 2 plus 1 is 3, so we will be having a sequence starting from 3 ending at 5 है ना, and that sequence being consecutive, which you need to keep in mind, and same goes with here है ना. So by just seeing in the uh, by just seeing the sequence and the number of row, we end up on a formula which says that ith row would be having a sequence starting from n minus I plus 1 goes until n. ठीक है. So we just need to make minor changes to the code of the pattern 1, and that changes would be in the part when we are printing the sequence. Okay, so in the pattern 1 we are just printing the sequence starting from 1 until what until so what it was so it was until I है ना. So we are just printing numbers starting from 1 until I. ठीक है. So we just need to make changes to that only. So what we really need to do is just okay, so let me just copy paste this code. So this is the code for the pattern 1, which is this. ठीक है. So we just make changes to a small part, and which is this one. Okay, so this for loop is responsible for printing the numbers, right, on the console. And we know that our sequence is starting from n minus I plus 1. Okay, so we'll just initializing the j with n minus I plus 1, and j would go until n. Okay, so this is the only change we really need to make to the code in order to print the pattern of this type. Okay, so let us just build this code and run it a quick. So a dot out, and let us just input a value of 7. Okay, so if you see on this pattern, we are getting the required pattern. Okay, so again I'll be repeating that these patterns are just interrelated to each other. We just have to make some small changes to the pattern in order to achieve a new pattern. Now so this is the another code we have to uh, do. ठीक है. So according to if you just think about this pattern, okay, so this would you know um, look like this. Okay, so if you think about this pattern only, okay, you would end up on a conclusion that the again ith row, you would end up in the conclusion that the ith row is having the n minus I minus plus 1 characters. No. So what I just said n minus I plus 1 characters. Okay, so let us just check this equation or check this condition. Okay, so for this particular example, n being 5, and for this particular row I being 1, so that would be 5 minus 1 plus 1, which is 5. Okay, so we'll be having 5 numbers on the first row, and in the second row, n being 5, I being 2, so that would be 5 minus 2 plus 1, which is 4. So we'll be having 4 characters or 4 numbers on the second row, and in the third row we'll be having same 3 numbers. In the second row we'll be having, sorry, in the fourth row we'll be having 2 numbers, and in the fifth row we're having 5 numbers, sorry, 1 number. Okay, so you can just take your time and think about it, that how I got to this conclusion that the ith row would be having n minus I plus 1 element. Okay, so let me just write it down very quick, that the ith row would be having n minus I plus 1 plus 1 elements or numbers. Yeah, so okay, so we just got to this point. Ab what we need to do is we need to find a way that how to print this sequence. Okay, and I discussed earlier that how to print this sequence. If you are forget how to print this sequence, you can just skip to the part where I was discussing the printing the pattern 1 of level 2. Okay, so this particular sequence is a consecutive sequence starting from 1 ending at a number which is equals to the n minus I plus 1, है ना. So if you see to this sequence only, we have 1 being the first number of the sequence and 5 being the last number of the sequence, and 5 is nothing but the number of elements in the row. Okay, so in the first row we were having the 5 elements, so we are just printing the sequence starting from 1 to 5. Okay, and in the second row we are having the 4 numbers, so we are printing the sequence starting from 1 to 4. And in the third row we are printing 1 2 3, and the fourth row, and we goes on and on and so on, है ना. अब okay, so we got the ratio between the number of elements, and we also found how to print the sequence. So just go to the code part, and so this is the pattern 4. So okay, so if you see closely enough, what I can do is I can just get this one. So let me just copy it and paste it. Okay, so this was printing the spaces. Okay, so and since this particular example doesn't have any spaces involved, so we don't want any spaces, so I'll just delete this. Okay, so uh first we need to find the number of elements, so that would be int number of elements. Okay, so and this number of element can be found using the relation n minus I plus 1. So that, let me just write it, n minus I plus 1. Okay, so now we have found out how many elements would be having for the particular row. Ab we need to print the elements, we need to print the numbers, sorry, we need to print the sequence starting from 1 until the number of elements, and this is the only code. Let me just build it real quick and run it also, and let us just what we just input, let us just input 5. Okay, so I've input 5. Okay, and by inputting 5 we are getting the desired output. Okay, and again we just took the code of this example, made some minor changes, and we are getting a whole new pattern. Up we are uh, finished with the level 2. Let us just discuss about level 3. So this has 3 examples. Okay, so let us just discuss about this pattern. Okay, so if you see closely enough, okay, if I just hide this part only, if I just hide this part, okay, I'm assuming that you can print this part, that one. Okay, I'm assuming that you are now independent enough to print this sequence only. Okay, so I'll be discussing only this part, okay, which prints the this sequence. Okay, so one more thing, that you cannot directly print this sequence after printing this whole sequence. You just have to add something to each row in order to achieve this particular sequence or this particular pattern. Okay, so okay, so if you analyze this pattern, okay, you will find out कि each subpart of the sequence is starting from 2, ठीक है, starting from 2 and going until the I, and where I being the uh, number of row number. Okay, so what we have to do, uh, after printing this sequence for a particular row, we also have to print this sequence also, है ना, and after that we have to print the new line, and you know and same thing would go inside the loop. Okay, so let me just write the code for this real quick. Also I'll be just discussing a code only approach for printing this part only, for printing this pattern only. Okay, so I'll be discussing only code only approach. Okay, so baki, I'm assuming that you are independent enough to get the logic about how to print this half part. this half part. Okay, so so I have already copy paste the code for the uh, pattern 1 of level 2, because the first part of the pattern resembles the pattern 1 of level 2. So I've just copy pasted this. So what we have to really do is I guess this is not a pattern 2. Yes, it is pattern 2. Okay, so we just have to start from 1. So we just have to start from 1, which is this. And okay, so okay, so we just need to make some really quick changes. So which says n minus j should start with n minus I plus 1 and go until, you know, 1, which I am not wrong, I guess, and j should get decremented. And after printing this part only, let us just take an example. So for this, for the third row, we first have to print this sequence starting from 3 to 1. Okay, so okay, so that would not be n minus I plus 1, that would be I only. Okay, so starting from 3 until 1. Now after that we need to print the sequence starting from 2 to I, you know. So we'll just add a for loop to print that. So I'll be saying for n j equals to 2, and j less than I, j plus plus, and c out j. Okay, okay, so this is the, you know, only change I made to the pattern 1 code, and I'm hoping that I'll be receiving this pattern in the console. So let me just run it or build the code quick and then run it. So level3.cpp, then a.out, and let me just input 5 as the value of n. So yes, I'll be getting the desired pattern. Okay, so I just took the code for the pattern 1 of level 2 and just made some real quick changes and add something from my side, and I'm getting uh, this pattern as the output. Now let's just, you know, discuss the second pattern. So this second pattern is you know, same as that of the first one. Okay, so the first one is okay, so the second one is the reverse of the first one. Okay, so okay, so the second one is the reverse of the first one. So if you know, compare these two patterns. Okay, so let me just select it and take this side. Okay, so if you compare this one, okay, so both are having a difference of printing the rows. Okay, so the fifth row of this pattern is being printed first, and the fourth row of this pattern is being printed on the second number. The third row is being printed on the third number, second row is being printed on the second number, and the first row is being printed on the first number. Okay, so can I directly say that I just need to print the fifth row first, and then fourth, then third, then two, then one, I can say that. So we just have to, you know, change the code of this pattern only. Okay, we just have to make changes to the two places only, not actually two, three only, and those changes would be on the outer for loop. So let me just explain it via code. So I'm taking the code for the pattern 1 and pasting inside here. So oops, I just forgot to remove this slash. Okay, so in the pattern 1 we were starting from first row, and going until the nth row, and what we have to do, what we want that we need to print, we need to print the nth row first, and the first row at last. So I just, you know, reverse the for loop. Okay, so initially that was starting from 1 and going until n. Up for the pattern 2 we are starting from n and going until 1 and decrementing the uh, I at each step. Okay, so that would result in, you know, printing the last row in the first, the second last row in the second, the third last row in the third, and so on, and at the last we'll be having the first row of the pattern 1 being printed on the console at the last. Okay, so this is the only change we need to make to the code in order to achieve this pattern. Okay, so let us just build the code and run it real quick, and let us just take 5 again as the value of n. Okay, so by inputting 5 we are getting the desired output. Okay, so this is the only change to the code we really need to make, so to achieve the pattern, the desired pattern. Okay, okay, so we'll be having this pattern. So it might look like very hard, it might looks like very hard, but just trust me, this is very simple. Okay, so the first step in order to solve the pattern problem was that key we have to find the relation between the spaces and the row. Okay, and if you see closely enough, we already have the relation between the spaces for this part only. Okay, we already calculated, or we already uh, find the we already found the relation between the spaces and the row for this part in the level 1, sorry, not in level 1, but in level 2 pattern 1. Okay, and this relation was the ith row would be having n minus I spaces. Okay, so the relation was like that. So this is what the this part only, but as you can see we have spaces inside the triangle also. Okay, so by okay, so now we just have to find the relation between the spaces for the inner part. Okay, so if I just remove this red triangle and just again focus on the on this pattern, so I would end up on a solution which says that the inner part of triangle would be having the odd number of spaces. So the second row would be having the first one space. Okay, the third row would be having three space, and the fourth row would be having five spaces. You know, I can say that. So ठीक है, I can say that. अब I need to generalize the uh, I need to find the generalized equation so that I can just use that equation to print the space inside the triangle. Okay, uh, okay, so again if you see closely enough, so you will realize ki first row and the last row doesn't having any spaces inside the triangle. Okay, so we'll just skip those part. Okay, okay, so we'll just skip for I equals to 1, and we'll just skip the I equals to n. Okay, अब what we really need to do, first we need to print the numbers है ना. So and numbers are the very easy, so which is the these numbers are just the row numbers. Okay, so the first row, for the first row we are having 1, for the second row we are having 2, for the third row we are having 3, for the fourth row we are having 4, and for the fifth row we are having 5. Okay, okay, so अब we got to the point that we need to skip the two parts, which is for I equals to 1 and I equals to n, and we need to print spaces for the other. Okay, so we need to generalize the equation. Okay, so let me just number the rows real quick. So this is 2, this is 3, this is 4. Okay, okay, so okay, so if I just look to this case only, okay, I'll end up on a point. Okay, I'll end up on a a very vague equation which says the which according to the equation, not according to the equation the very vague equation is I minus 1, okay, times 2 minus 1. Okay, and again I being the row number. Okay, so let us just check this equation, that whether it satisfies the number of spaces for the second row or not. Okay, so we'll just put the 2 in the place of I, so that would be 2 into 2 minus 1, which is 1 into 2 divided by 1, sorry, minus 1. So 2 minus 1 is 1, so 1 multiplied 2 is 2, 2 minus 1 is 1. Okay, so for second row we are having the one space. Okay, and again let us just try to check for the fourth row. Okay, so we'll just input 4 minus 1 times 2 minus 1, so 4 minus 1 is what, 3, 3 into 2 minus 1, so 3 into 2 was 6, 6 minus 1 is 5. Okay, 5. So fourth row is also having the 5 spaces. Okay, so okay, so this equation is working perfectly. Okay, so अब we need to find a sequence of printing the spaces, then numbers, then spaces, then numbers. Okay, we just need to print the sequence. Okay, so if we take the example of the third row, okay, we just have to print the n minus I spaces first, okay, followed by the row number, which is 3, followed by the n minus I times 2 minus 1 spaces, okay, followed by row number also. Okay, we need to print that on the console. Up, there is an extra case we need to handle, which says that uh, the last row, which is the nth row, would be having numbers starting from the row number and goes until the row number. So basically, the last row would contain the some number of the last row would contain uh, the last row would contain the 5, or I would say the n. Okay, how much time that we need to calculate. And let me just count these numbers real quick. So which is 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. Okay, so it is 9. Ab I can generalize equation also for that for that only. So I can just generalize it by writing n into 2 minus 1. Okay, and n being the number of rows for the pattern. Okay, so you can uh, check check for the uh, so you can check whether this equation satisfies by taking several examples. Okay, so I'm just skipping the part because that would might. Okay, so you can check for the this equation, that whether it satisfies the condition for all pattern or not. Okay, I'm skipping this because that would create that would that would take some unnecessary time. Okay, so let us just jump to the code and write it. Okay, so we'll be changing the we'll be changing the code of the pattern 1 level 3. Okay, so pattern 1 level 3, which is this. Okay, so this is the code for the pattern 1 level 3. And let me just take this. And okay, so okay, so this is the for this is this for loop was printing spaces, okay, which we wanted. And this for loop was printing the numbers. Okay, so instead of the numbers, which is d2 1 2 blah 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 blah, instead we first have to क्या बोलते हैं उसे, we first have to print the row number, which is the I. ठीक है, which is I. And also we need to skip when I is 1 or n. Okay, so if I is 1, okay, if I is 1, what we really need to do is you know simply print I on the screen and continue. I hope you really know the meaning of the continue. So continue is basically a keyword in C++ which is used to skip an iteration. Okay, so that is the, okay. And if I is equals to n, ठीक है, For that we know that we what we need to do, we need to print the n how much times, n multiplied 2 minus 1 time. So for that I'll be using a for loop. So for int I equals 0, not I, for int j equals to 0, not 0, for j equals to 1, j less than equals to n times 2 minus 1 and j plus plus, and printing the what, n. Okay, and after that again we need to continue. So basically we don't want to execute the code beneath that. ठीक है. अब what we really need to do is first we need to print the two numbers, which being the row number. So I'm just printing the row number, and between these row number I need to print the spaces. Okay, and we discussed that how much spaces this pattern gonna have. So number spaces would be I minus 1 times 2 minus 1. ठीक है. So I'll be just starting a for loop, starting from 1, and it goes until I times I minus 1 times 2 minus 1, and enclosing this also inside the brackets, and j plus plus, and instead of printing j, I need to print the space. Okay, so it should work now. ठीक है. So after I also need to add a new line. For new line I am using endl here. Okay, so let me just review the code a real bit, real quick. So okay, so code seems fine. Let us just build the code and check that is it creating the desired output or not. Okay, so we just 5, and let us just take the value of 5. Okay, so if you see the pattern, we are getting the desired output. Okay, and I'll again repeat that I just took the code of the pattern 1 and made some real quick changes to it. Added something to the code, and how I got to that something, I just analyzed the pattern. Okay, I just did some trial and errors in order to find a generalized equation that I can use in order to print the spaces or print the elements. And this was the level 3, and let us just discuss about the patterns of level 4. Okay, so these patterns are fairly simple. I guess you can do it, because they doesn't require any numbers. uh, so let's just do it really quick. Okay, so uh okay, so this pattern is fairly simple. Okay, so you can just print this part and then print this part. Okay, so if you compare this with the level 3 pattern 1, okay, you just have to you just have to use stars or asterisks instead of numbers. Okay, so you just need to do that and print the space, and after printing this pattern you can just print this pattern beneath this. Okay, so that would merge to get this kind of pattern on the console for the star. Okay, so I'm hoping that you can just got to the logic that what am I using in the code, and let's just directly jump to the code for the pattern 1 level 4. So this is the pattern 1 level 4. So let me just first take the code for the pattern 1 of level 3. So this is for the code pattern 1 level 3. So copy. So pattern 1 level 3 is this. Okay, so let me just click, and let me just change the number with asterisk. So I just changed the J with asterisk wherever I was printing J with asterisk. So now the code will print the asterisk. Okay, now so that was for the upper part, which is for this part only. which is for this part only. Okay. What we really need to do is go on the second part, continue with the second part. Okay, so we now just have to print the second part. So for that we know key we can make use of the code of the pattern 2 level 1. Okay, so pattern 2 of level 1, which was just the reverse of the pattern 1 level 3. Okay, so I just have to print that after printing the upper part of the pattern, है ना? And again changing j with asterisk. So change j with asterisk. Let us just clear the terminal first. Ab let me just build the code real quick. So that is g plus plus level 3. Oh, sorry, it's not level 3, it's level 4. So level 4 a dot out, and let us just input the value of 5. Okay, so by inputting value of 5 we are getting the desired output. Okay, so we just took the code for the pattern 1 and 2 of level 2, sorry, level 3, and merged those and changed the occurrences of number with the asterisk, and we got the desired result. Okay, अब this pattern, so this pattern and this pattern is 96% 96% same, but the difference in both is that if you see the middle part, if you see this part, if you see this part only, let me just erase it, erase the boundaries that I've made. Okay, so if you just focuses on the this part, the middle part. Okay, so the first pattern has two rows which are identical to each other, but the second pattern has only one row. Okay, so we just need to do some minor change to the code of the pattern 1 level 4. So let me just do it. And so first let me just take the code of the pattern 1, copy it, and paste it here. And now what I need to do is while printing the second half of the pattern, I need key the nth row, the this part should get skipped. Okay, so this I don't want to print this part on the console. Okay, so for that what I am doing, I'm just starting the for loop of the second half from n minus 1 instead of n. Okay, so that would cause skipping this part only, and I'll be getting this pattern on the output as output. So let me just build the code and run it. So a dot out, and again let's just take the value of 5. Okay, so I'm getting the desired output, and if you see closely enough, these two patterns only differ in this row only. Okay, so this row is in the pattern 1 but not in pattern 2. Up let us just discuss this pattern only. Okay, okay, so this pattern is also simple to print on the console. Okay, and what we can do is if we just break this pattern into two halves. So let us call this half as part 1. Let us just call this part as upper part, this part as lower part. Okay, okay, so if you know compare it with the pattern of level 3, okay, so this one. Okay, so um so this pattern would look same, um not entirely but somewhat same to the pattern, this pattern that we need to print on the console. Okay, but the difference is we won't be having the n times 2 minus 1 numbers on the last row. Okay, but we would be having the this much spaces between the numbers है ना, and instead of numbers we are using asterisks. Okay, so let me just take this code, take the code of this pattern and do some real changes, sorry, real quick changes. So where is it? So it was level 3 pattern 4, level 3 pattern 4, sorry, pattern 3, sorry, level 3 pattern 3. So it is, so there it is. Let me just copy it, copy, and pattern 3, here it is. Okay, so first what we need to do, we need to get the rid of G, and okay, so first we really need to get rid of the condition when I equals to n. Okay, so this condition was responsible for printing the uh, uh, so okay, so this condition was responsible for populating the last row with n. Okay, so in this pattern we really don't want. Okay, so okay, so we are printing spaces, so okay, we are just printing the uh, okay, so then okay, so if you see closely enough, the first row has one asterisk and the last row has also one asterisk. Okay, so since we are dealing with the upper part only now, so I'm just skipping this part and added a case to uh, check that whether the I is one or not. So previously we had a case where we were checking for whether the I is equals to 1, and if it is equals to 1 then printing the I. And since we are not dealing with numbers now, we are dealing with asterisk, so just changing one with asterisk. Okay, so this call okay, so uh, so this if statement, what it does, key, it will check that whether we are on the first row or not. If we are on the first row, just print the asterisk and continue. And again, as I've said earlier, that continue is a keyword in C++ that is used to skip a particular iteration. Okay, okay. Again, we are not dealing with numbers, so just changing the uh, statements wherever we are printing numbers with asterisk. Okay, so okay, so printed the asterisk, and now we have okay, so we have printed the spaces between the asterisk also. Up this particular code, this particular code can print the upper half of the pattern. Okay, so let me just run it quickly and check that whether it is doing its job or not. So let me just input 5. Okay, so we are getting the upper part of the array, so not upper part of the pattern. Okay, so we are getting it. Up uh, up again, if you compare these two patterns, if sorry, if you compare these two parts, okay, you will got to know that this particular part is just reverse of this. Okay, so if I just print this row first, followed by this row, followed by this row, and followed by this one, so I'll be getting this pattern only, है ना? So let me just do it a real quick. And also while doing while printing the reverse of this part, we need that the last row, which is this row, okay, should get skipped while printing, because if we print you know if we print this row on the console, so it would result like this. So the pattern would look like this, like यहाँ पे भी star and here also a star. Okay, so that we don't want, so we are just printing so we just skip this row while printing the second half. Okay, so let me just uh, take this code, copy this, copy this, and paste it, and just reverse the order. And यहाँ पे I should be greater than equals to 1, and instead of I minus minus we're decrementing I, and we are starting with n minus 1. Okay, and also ठीक है, and all the condition remains same as it is, and this should work now. Let us just build the code and check whether it is producing the desired result or not. Okay, so let us just print 5. Okay, so we are getting the desired result. Okay, so this was the last pattern of the last level. Okay, so these are the enough patterns for practicing and for developing the problem solving skills. Okay, so if you see, like, if you see closely enough, or you might have experienced that we just took the code of level 1 pattern 1, okay, made some gradual changes to it, and ended up printing a pattern like this. I'm hoping that you got the learning on how to approach these kind of problems in order to solve the pattern problems. Okay, and like, you can always practice a lot. If you go on a Google and if you go on a internet, you will find many problems related to the patterns. Just go there and practice, and according to me, these problems are enough. Just, practice these problems after watching videos, and that's about it. Okay, so if you found this video helpful, then consider subscribing it, and if you want, you can share it with your friends also. Bye for now.